We're back. Back. Baseball's Intended, the podcast. Back with episode 24. Back, Yeyo. Back, Jon. How's it going? Thank you for having us back. Right?
Yeah, no, man. We took a little extended all-star break there. A little bit too much. Um yeah, man. I'm excited to get back into the swing. There's a lot to talk about today.
Yeah. And for that extended break, that's my fault. I took a couple of weeks to went back home. It was right after, like right before All Star game. Like the last episode
Yeah.
we had, we talked about the home run derby. That was electric. All Star game, it wasn't as electric, but it had a chance at being extremely electric. If Julio Rodriguez would have walked that off, like that would have
Yes.
been an all-time All Star moment. It didn't happen, but NL pulled through there. But we didn't miss much. I don't think there we missed much of the All Star.
No,
What
it
we
was
did miss,
okay.
yeah, what we did miss was the trade deadline, and we're a week away, or week, I guess, off from that deadline, and we miss a lot of things there that we're gonna be covering. We're gonna be talking about that. We're gonna plug in our normal around the league and winners and losers all into one. We have to talk about Tim Anderson and Jose Ramirez. Little, it was a boxing weekend, and that happened as well. And start bench cut because of the trade deadlines. We're going to be talking about three of the best trade deadline acquisitions and trades in history. We're going to go start bench cut, and that is going to be very interesting. But anything you want to add in this leadoff, or you want to jump right into it?
No, so I'm excited because we were talking about, you know, talking about the trades and then talking around the league, but it goes hand in hand right now because like you said, we're a week removed from the trade deadline. But I feel like it's very relevant because some of these trades feel like they've paid off a little bit for some teams already. Some you're looking and saying, maybe they didn't really do the right thing. So we're heading into, last 2 months of the season. And I think it's interesting to see how this affects our perception of the last month and a half, 2 months of the year.
And of course they go hand to hand because it's about winners and losers, right? Like this is, and
Yes.
buyers and sellers. What are teams doing? What are they? And then now we're a week removed, but so we can start to see how some of these trades maybe have already had an impact, or
Yeah.
kind of like how those things are starting to go. But let's start with your team then, because I think they were the team that made the most trades probably, but it was all sell, 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 sell. So talk to me about the Mets. Obviously, they let go of Verlander, Scherzer, Marcana, everybody.
Everybody. I absolutely love what the Mets did. I really do. I've been saying for a while that the Mets were out of it. You got to give me that. I've said the Mets were out of it. I think when the trade deadline rolled around, they were like 6.5 game back. They'd been about 6.5 games back of the wild card for a month or so. And you look at the roster and you would say, oh, it's a pretty good roster. Max Scherzer, Justin Verlander. And I was a little bit scared that the front office would say, these guys are going to get it together and they're going to make a run. And the truth is they were not. And so I love what they did. Billy Epler said, he talked with Steve Cohen. They had made a big investment, especially with Scherzer and Verlander. And the investment wasn't working out. So at least move that to something. Move it to the farm system. So I absolutely love that. They traded Verlander to the Astros. I think that was a pretty good trade for both sides. The Mets got two of the top four prospects from Houston. They got Ryan Clifford, Drew Gilbert. I love that. They traded Scherzer to Texas. They got Acuna's younger brother, Luis Angel. I don't think he's going to be Acuna, but they got
Yeah.
the last name, so I'm going to dream. But in all regards, everyone regards him as a very good prospect. They filled in a couple other pieces by getting rid of Pham, getting rid of Canna. They traded Robertson to Miami. They didn't really get much back there, but I'm okay with that because in your mind, you're saying Edwin Diaz is coming back. He's still your long-term closer. So I really like that. The Mets managed to make a lot of noise just by selling, and they were like an arms dealer, just funding wars across the globe. They're like, hey, you need some arms, you need some arms. And I do like it because I think this is one of the benefits of having a rich owner that I think
That
maybe
doesn't
I
care
didn't
about,
realize.
yeah.
Yeah, that a lot of people didn't realize that he said, I spent a lot of money. That sucks. I'm at least going to get what I can, back. And we don't really follow farm systems as much. We've always said it. But from all reports, the Mets went from a bottom 10 farm system to somewhere in the top 10 farm system. And I like that. I think that's the best case scenario. I would hate to see right now Justin Verlander and Scherzer pitching meaningless game, getting millions of dollars a start, even though we ended up paying a lot of their salary. I like it. I think I'm
Yeah.
as happy as I could be as a Mets fan.
I think, I think that's the big, I guess, what I get, and this is what I got from my numbers that somebody sent me. The Mets will be paying players on the roster $153.2 million, and
Yep.
players outside of the roster $137.5 million. Yes, you get something back, as in like, okay,
Yeah.
instead of losing 45 million a year, you're gonna lose 25. But it's a lot of money that you're paying a lot of
Yep.
players to be playing for another team. Again, it's all part of it. He went all in. The Mets took over the entire offseason by signing everybody, right? Remember, especially
Yep.
when they were this close of signing Correa, it was the Mets offseason. It was the Mets almost trade deadline. Everybody knew that they were selling. Everybody was calling. And teams in contention, you had to call and see. And Rangers and Astros, they're going to be battling for the West. And they both went and got the best arms out there.
Yep.
Verlander coming off pitching amazing, looked exactly like last year's
Verlander
Justin
had looked
Verlander.
good even for the Mets the last couple starts.
Yeah, I think his last like 8 starts, he had a sub-2 ERA. That's very good, very Verlander. Like Scherzer had been struggling a little bit, but we always talk about the New York thing, right? Maybe he just wasn't
Right.
He never felt at home. And it sounded like he didn't feel at home because I don't know if you saw his quote after or his interview after. He was like, yeah, they told me that we're getting ready for 25 and 26. Mets fans don't want to hear that because they have a rich owner who's willing to pay. They got Ohtani, who's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. You want the Mets to go get him. And to go get him, you have to tell him that you're ready to make a playoff push in 2024, not 25 and 26. So that was interesting because he was the only guy that said something like that. Marcano was very professional. First time getting traded, he was very professional with his trade. Same with Verlander. Obviously, Verlander's probably happy he went back to Houston, a place that he
but he
already
did
knows
keep
and
it
everything. But he
professional,
kept
right?
it.
He was like, I would recommend the organization to anyone, yada yada.
So I thought that was kind of weird. A little bit.
I think it's weird. I think it was a little tone deaf by Scherzer. He's a big reason that the Mets had to be trading because he hadn't done that good. But I know you said a lot of Mets fans don't like hearing 25, whatever. I'm okay with it. I think they field a decent team next year. And I think this was a good, in a way, I don't want to say wake up call for Steve Cohen, but I think he realized pretty quick, like, you have to have a farm system as well. And maybe he had to buy that farm system, which is what he did this year. But they have a ton of dead money, like you said. A lot of that still falls off after next year, though, which is good. So again, that might be why in their mind they're saying 25. But I think they made the best of a really disappointing bad situation.
And also, if they're hanging around next year, right, with maybe not the team that they had this year, the expectations might be a little bit lower. But if they're hanging around and they decide to be buyers, you have a lot of good young talent you can trade back to go get some talent. So I don't know. That's gonna be interesting. For my team, Boston, they were, I think, 4th place at the time, like a couple games behind Toronto, and they didn't buy, they didn't sell. They just went out and got Luis Urias. I don't know. Well, I feel like
does that get you fired up?
Nothing. So it's kind of like they were in that position where they didn't know what to do if they should go buy or sell. So they decide to do nothing. Right. Same with the Yankees. Nestor Cortez was coming back. Judge just got back, so maybe they feel that that's kind of like trade deadline acquisitions. Boston doesn't have that. Trevor Story, I think, is kind of like maybe a month away from coming back. That's not a trade. And AL East, we've been saying it since spring training. Best division in baseball. You got the Orioles that are now in 1st place. Took over the Rays after a historic start, but Orioles, Rays, Blue Jays. You didn't do anything, and then you got Toronto coming home and sweeping you at home. That's not a good thing. So I think their season is most likely over. Our team's season is most likely over. It's over. Well, good. We had a good run. Well, I think Boston overachieved a little bit. Again, anything can happen. I just don't think they're gonna make a playoff. They just got too big of a mountain to climb. That's kind of like where I'm at with them, but I don't know. I'm not extremely happy, but I'm okay with what.
But you were in a tough spot. It's easier to make that decision when you're half a game back or 7 games back. Yeah. Right where the Red Sox were, right in the middle. They really didn't have a reason to believe that they were going to catch up. but you also couldn't sell because you were very tough spot.
And they did trade a Kike Hernandez, who was struggling. I mean, he was having probably the worst season of his
He was probably the
career.
happiest to go back.
He
to.
went back home, and they, I don't know what they got back. Probably just, I mean, the Dodgers talk about a farm system. They didn't get any top talent, but he went back home. But they really didn't do much. It was cool to see the Baltimore go out and get a pitcher. A little veteran pitcher in Jack Flaherty. Maybe he has some gas left in the tank that's going to be good. And then
we like that, right?
Yeah, and then I mean the
motivated Jack Flaherty in a playoff game for a really good team could be very interesting.
And there was something off, I think, in the offseason with Jack Flaherty and the Cardinals or Cardinals fans, so he's out of there. And then Tampa went out and got Aaron Civale, so now you got to expect Aaron Civale to have an insane second half of the year, just because if Tampa went out and got you and you're a pitcher, they probably know something that and nobody else does. So
they're like the new Astros in that regard. Yeah.
So the top 3 teams in the A's kind of went for it, and I mean, they knew they had to. They're battling it out all the way. I don't know. Around the NL or AL Central, not much happened. Minnesota is still in first place. They're 4.5 games in front of Cleveland. Cleveland took a little bit of a step back. They traded Josh Bell. To Miami. So Miami got a little bit of a bat. We know Detroit, Eduardo Rodriguez was kind of like that pitcher that everybody was going to call and see because he wasn't as expensive as the Verlanders and Scherzers. Dodgers were like, we'll go get him. And he was like, no, I don't want to go to LA. You never see that.
And they really didn't expect that. And he's got a lot of former teammates over there going into a playoff run type thing. And I just want to be around my family. He's just rich. He just said it's not worth it.
He's like, it's going to be much more expensive in LA. I'll stay in Detroit. It's calm. Yeah.
And it put the Dodgers in a weird spot because if the Dodgers make that move, you feel pretty good about them, right? You're saying, hey, they added on as they should, as they always do. But when he said no, it was too late for them to do anything else.
They're like, now what?
Which was, it was very interesting. Like they were probably getting ready for the press conference to announce it. And they told him he's not coming. And they're like, oh, is his flight delayed? No. He said no, Yeah. And so that was an interesting little wrinkle. We'll see how much that cost them down the stretch.
They went out and got 2 pitchers from that same division, right? In the White Sox, they got Lance Lynn. They also got Joe Kelly, which Joe Kelly's already making sound waves, throwing 100-mile-an-hour heaters right at Tatis's head. Classic Joe Kelly. But not much happened in the AL Central. Again, weak division, and then you don't do anything. I thought it was kind of like surprising. I thought Minnesota might be like, you know what? I'm going for the juggler. I'm just going to go ahead and make a big splash.
And Cleveland as well. I mean, they're 4.5 games back right now. But when the trade deadline came, I think they were within 2 or somewhere very close. And you had to feel that they thought if they added a piece, they could win it. But that was an odd one. Maybe neither team thinks that they can make a run in the playoffs so that it's kind of a waste. But that's a weird mindset because once you get in the playoffs, you always feel like you have a chance.
Yeah, like you said, there were a couple games back of the division lead. And another team that was a couple games back of a wild card and into the division was the LA Angels. And that's the big one that everybody was talking about. What are they going to do? I always said that I didn't think that they were going to trade him, especially if they were hanging around. I always said if it's 3 or 4 games, they're probably going to keep him and buy. If they were 6 or 7 games or above that, then they sell. So I think they were like about 2-3.5 games outside of the wild card. And they said, we're keeping Shohei and we're buying. And they went out and got Giolito. The curious thing about this is obviously now we're recording a week after the trade deadline. They have not won since. They've lost 6 games in a row. And instead of being 4.5 back of the division, they're 10.5 because Texas have won 6 in a row. The Angels have lost 6 in a row. What's your? I mean,
you know how I feel about this. I think this was.
Hold up, before you start, did you see the clip of Shohei like literally holding his tears back?
Yeah,
like,
he's devastated.
Like he wants out so bad. I feel terrible for him.
I think this was the worst non-trade that a GM has ever made. I said they had to get rid of him, Yeyo. I've been saying that forever. They were 4 games back. I get it. They felt the pressure. They thought in their mind, we're going to show Shohei that we want him here, that we're going to build around him. Shohei's gone after this year. I don't care when he went. He might think right now that there's a chance he stays in LA, but when they start flying him out to New York and showing him the pinstripes or at Citi Field, or they start showing him Los Angeles, he's gone. He's gone. Other teams have more to offer than the Angels, and they were a little bit naive. They thought we can pull this off, and they're in the same spot as the Mets right now. They're 7 games back. That, like, the season's over. They're done for, and they got absolutely no. I'm serious. Like, you got to think about it. They're in the same.
No, I was gonna say they're in the same boat, but they have a Mike Trout contract and Anthony Rendon that cannot play contract, making $40 million. So the Mets at least.
And Shohei's gone. Yeah, Shohei's gone. And Shohei's gone. Like, I said it from the beginning. If you're the GM, you have to make the tough decisions and sit there and tell the fans that you want to put them in a position long term. They're toast. They got nothing for them. They're screwed.
I have to defend the GM because there were reports that it was Art Moreno saying, I'm not going to be the owner that trades the best baseball player in the history. So it came from the owner. Apparently, it was the owner that he thought about selling the team, and then he was like, nope, we're not selling the team, and I'm keeping Shohei. So if you're the GM, at that point, there's not much you can do. You got to either step down or just whatever. You telling me to buy? We're buying. Okay, let's call.
Well, and the owner, it's Moreno, right?
Yeah, Moreno.
He probably thought that sounded really cool, right? I'm not going to be the owner that trades the best player in the world. What that translates to is I'm going to be the owner that lets the best player in the world walk away and get nothing in return.
So here's the thing with these trades and trade deadline. A lot of the times we see teams kind of, you know what? We're going for it. We're going for it. And he worked the exact opposite for the Angels. Oh, we're going for it? Oh, my God, I'm scared of October. Yeah. Let's start losing games, Like, it's usually the other way around. I don't know. I feel bad for Angels fans. They're struggling. Seattle is not struggling.
Worst case scenario for them. Yeah. Worst case scenario.
Yeah, literally. Worst case scenario might be in the offseason if Shohei walks. There's still a chance. I still think there's a chance that he signs. I don't know.
What percentage would you put it at that he signs?
So if we go Angels versus the field, I think they have like a 15%. About 15% chance they sign him.
Should have traded him.
Yeah. I agree that they should have traded him. But yeah. I'm curious to see. So I know they kind of shut that down early, but I'm curious to see the offers. Like, what offers were they going to get?
There had to be a lot. I mean, you look at what the Mets got for an old Verlander, right? 2 of the top 4 prospects. If he got traded to a team that thought they were going to re-sign him, they could have gotten.
So that's the thing. Giving away your entire farm system for half a year of Shohei, not knowing if you're going to sign him, is risky as well. And I think a lot of teams were kind of like, obviously, if you go on and win a World Series, it was worth it, right? But not everybody's willing to risk that, right? Like,
but some are, right? Some teams were.
It's crazy that we never got reports of some offers when it came to that trade. So, but I don't know. Seattle is hot. They're 6 games back, won 5 in a row. Houston is still hanging out. I think this is going to be a 2-team race as well. Texas is still 20. I mean, they're playing still good baseball, 6 in a row. They made the 2 biggest trades, Verlander and Scherzer. Texas not having the ground, but they went out and got Scherzer. Maybe Scherzer will fit, that offense.
And we mentioned previously, they did it early, but they went and got Chapman too, which is not a trade deadline trade, but they saw that this is an opportunity for him.
Yeah. So that's going to be an interesting battle because I think we've always said Houston has not played their best baseball. They haven't been healthy, and it feels like they're just about there, and it's going to be a battle till the end.
They got that Framber Verlander 1-2 again is scary.
Yeah. Christian Javier is your third starter. Like, the guy that threw a perfect game or a no-hitter, whatever it was in the World Series. Like, come on.
He might only have to pitch once, in a 5-game series.
Scary. A division that is not as close as the NL East, which you already talked a little bit about your Mets. We talked Miami got a David Robinson. We mentioned that. Josh Bell, they got a couple bats as well. But they're in 3rd place now. Philly, here they come again. Second half team, same as last year. They're kind of hot. They're still 10.5 games behind the Braves. But, I mean, they're in that wild card race, obviously, leading that wild card race. So, I don't know. The Braves, I don't even think the Braves did anything. I don't think they needed to do anything. Anyways, they're insane. What else we got?
The Braves are. I think I said this previously. It feels like World Series or bust for them, which is very unfair.
Yeah.
Because World Series or bust in baseball is, you can never predict a World Series, but they've been in cruise control in first place, looking like. I mean, the Rays were up there, the Orioles, but I think the Braves are probably the best team in baseball, and
They're
they're
also
set up to win the World Series.
it's also World Series or bust because they've won it a couple. They won it a couple years back, right? So that
Yeah.
kind of says like you already showed you can do it. So now you have the team again, do it again. If it was a
Yeah.
team that haven't won it in 30 years or whatever, then you're like, they're good, but we'll see. Like
Yeah.
we're so the Atlanta Braves are 70 and 39. We're saying World Series or bust. The Baltimore Orioles are 70 and 42. We're not saying World Series or bust. And that's exactly
And
what
that
I mean.
proves your point.
Exactly.
Yeah, that proves your point because this same Atlanta team has shown, yeah, we can go win a World Series. And the
We haven't
Orioles
seen
are
it
like
for the
a lot of
Orioles.
young guys. Let's see them do it. But yeah, 100%. I see Braves, Orioles in a World Series. My money's on the Braves.
Oh, yeah.
They can have the same record going in and everything, and you just feel like
You're not gonna bet
yes.
against the Braves.
Yeah,
You're
it's a
just
very
not.
interesting point. But
Thank you. I did it
You're
by
welcome.
myself.
yeah,
NL Central, we got Milwaukee still leading. Cincinnati made a little bit of a run, and they're 1.5 games back of the division lead. Same with the Cubs. They're tied for second there. Cubs have 2 games left, but the Cubs are hot. They went out and got Jamie Candelario. Cody Bellinger is not 2017 Cody Bellinger, but he's back, right? So
Yeah.
that's good to see. Pittsburgh and St. Louis is still struggling, 9 and 11 games back. St. Louis obviously like people were talking about St. Louis. They had some nice pieces, and they really didn't trade any of them. They weren't buyers, they weren't sellers. There wasn't anything major other than Jordan Hicks.
Yeah.
He was sent to Toronto.
Yep.
But they had some big names. They had some prospects as well. They didn't trade anybody. I thought that was kind of interesting, and maybe not enough teams called them or offered something for the big names. I don't know. But then NL West, Dodgers are in first place, 4 games ahead of San Francisco. Arizona fell, and they're still 1 game above 500. 8.5 back of the division is just not good enough. They were buyers at the deadline, though. They got a couple bats, they got a couple pit arms as well, but they are 1.5 games back of that third wild card spot. So, they're still within range, obviously. It's just a little bit of a bad stretch right now. They've lost 6 in a row. So
they have, and in the West, a team that was quiet that really doesn't need to be quiet were the Giants. Were you surprised that the Giants didn't do anything there?
Yeah, I don't
anything
know.
major. I mean, they're a playoff team right now.
Yeah, and the thing is that like when we talk about, I feel like the big names, we already mentioned the big names. All the other trades,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like they have that big of an impact, right?
Right.
So what else could they have gotten? Like I thought San Diego, it felt like they went after it or they were buyers for
Right.
some reason. I was expecting them to trade Josh Hader and or Blake Snell, who's pitching great. But no,
Yep.
they went and got Rich Hill, G-Man Choi. Like, what are San Diego
They're in
doing? I don't know.
denial. They're in denial. They're in absolute denial.
Yeah, that's
I
weird.
thought the Giants could have maybe made a big splash because the theme of the offseason was always how much money they tried to spend. And so it felt like when they overachieved this year and they're looking like a playoff team, I thought, hey, maybe they really go for it. Maybe they were one of the teams that are willing to send some prospects for someone for 2 months. And
yeah.
I get it. Maybe they're saying, hey, we're building something long term here. But I thought that was a little bit interesting.
I mean, Mark Canha was there, Tommy Pham, those kinds of guys, at least somebody that can another bat,
Yeah.
so, something like that. That was kind of like the perfect trade for San Francisco, maybe on paper, but they really didn't do much.
And so I think the
They got
model
AJ
there,
Pollock,
and
which is kind of like on the same level, but
yeah, the model there, and I don't know. I know we just skipped this division, or we talked about this division, but like the Brewers, I really like what the Brewers did. The Brewers, first place team right now, looking like they're going to make the playoffs, and they made some smart moves. They added Carlos Santana, they added Canha, and then they got Chafin. Like those are 3 that you feel can benefit you either down the stretch or in the playoffs. And I would have liked to see something like that from the Giants, but maybe they just feel good about where they're at. I mean, they should feel good where they're at, but
yeah.
it's how much do you want to really make the team better?
And maybe they're looking around and saying we're tied with Philly right now. Philly didn't really do much. They have a struggling Turner, which Everyone's waiting for that flip, that
That's been
switch
a
to
little bit of
flip.
a
It's
storyline,
weird.
right?
All the shortstop are struggling, and they're like behind us is Chicago, is Cincinnati, Miami. Maybe they're like we're okay with what we have.
Yeah,
Cincinnati didn't do much at all, and
nothing.
this was a year for them to do something. They didn't do anything. So San Francisco's looking like the teams around me are not really getting any better. So why do I need to go out and kind of like do much? I'm
Yeah.
okay with an AJ Pollock trade, and we'll go with what we have. We've gotten
Yeah,
this
they're
far,
saying
right?
we've been beating them man to
Exactly.
man so far this year. We'll keep doing it.
Yeah. So, but that was still interesting. I'm curious to see what's gonna happen in that division, though. I think Arizona had a good first half, very good first half, very slow start to that second half, but they're still within range. I think
I'd like
it's
to
gonna be
see
good.
them get hot again.
Yeah.
Just
Just
to
to
see.
make it better. Yeah.
But yeah, a lot going on. A lot going on.
Lot going on.
It's reshaped a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and it's still early. Like all these trades might still have an impact later on. Some of them maybe in October. Especially in October. Like the Scherzer and Verlander acquisitions, those were made not only for the playoff push because they're almost locked in for the playoffs. It's more for the playoff run. So
Yeah.
that's gonna be interesting. We're gonna keep an eye on that all the way through. Somebody didn't keep an eye on a right hook though. Can we talk about that? What a transition! Oh my God, that was a good one by me again.
You don't miss.
I don't miss.
Like Jose
Like
Ramirez.
Jose Ramirez. We got to talk about this because this is the talking town, and there's
This
a
went
lot.
viral.
Extremely
I
viral.
have friends that aren't huge baseball fans that were sending me like, "Did you see this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I saw this."
The fact that it happened Saturday night before UFC and Jake Paul Nate Diaz fight, it just made it that much bigger. Let's show the clip of the play and just share your thoughts because
Let's just talk about it.
we
Yeah.
see the tag, right? My first thing, and I know we talked about this a little bit. My first thing was like he kind of stood over him for a little bit, not enough to make this into what happened. There was also a little bit of a hard tag and the right hand. I saw like he kind of like pushed him down a little bit. So if you notice, he did
Yeah.
that. So maybe that is what caused everything. But
Rewind it one more time because did he tag him on the helmet?
no, I think he missed
that-
it. I think he missed
Yeah.
it, but he went kind of like with both hands down. It was kind of like a hard tag, and then he stood over him. But I remember telling you maybe something happened before. These teams have been playing each other
Right.
for years, right? They know each other well, and you can see the right hook. The way he goes down was hilarious. But it's not hilarious. My bad. It is.
It is.
But the thing is, because he squared it up, he was the one that started it. But I
Yeah,
told
not
you,
a sucker punch, nothing.
No.
Like that was just a fair fight.
and J Ram was being held back. So while he was being held back, he swung. Lucky punch connected. Still, it didn't look like somebody would have been knocked out with a
No,
on
not at all.
But so that was the weird part. But I told you when we were talking, I'm like, maybe something happened before. And after the game, J-Ron was like, he's been disrespecting the game for so long. Da. He started it. I just had to defend myself. So the fact that he said he's been disrespecting the game for so long tells me that he just didn't like the guy. And he hasn't liked him for quite some time. And I know there's a lot of people that really don't like Tim Anderson. He's very vocal, very out there. Not everybody is not everybody's cup of tea, right? So great fight. Great fight. We don't
Like,
really
that-
have them.
Better than a lot of the pay-per-views that we watch. And that was a hockey style fight in baseball. Like baseball does have some good fights.
Now
the
that you
Amir
say-
Garrett
yeah,
fight
wait.
was amazing.
Now that you said hockey style, let's look at what the umpire did. Because it was hockey style
Yeah.
literally from the umpire. Look at the umpire.
He
He
said-
said
Okay,
that
go,
word? Hold
go.
up. Yeah,
Yep.
he probably heard a word that didn't want to hear. He was like, that's personal. He talked about his mama.
Yeah.
I'm out. Have
They
at
need
it.
to fight. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You guys can fight. So electric stuff.
Yeah.
Electric fight. I will say the Jose Ramirez reason for it, and I'm team Jose Ramirez here. I gotta say.
I feel like
I
90% of the internet
Yeah,
is.
I like the way it turned out, but I don't necessarily hate Tim Anderson, so I don't have anything like that. I don't think the reason Jose Ramirez gave was all that good for why he was so mad, because he said, "Oh, he's been disrespecting the game." Okay, and like, and what? Like you did go flying into second base head first like sliding through the bag, that's fine. All he did, really, maybe a little bit of a hard tag, maybe held it on you for a second, which in today's day and age of instant replay, a lot of people do that because they'll go look at it and go, oh, he was off the bag for a split second.
Yeah.
He's out. So I didn't really see that Tim Anderson did anything that bad there. Maybe Jose Ramirez doesn't really like him, got up, started chirping. It wasn't the greatest reason for it. But what's okay is that Tim Anderson got up and was like, you want to fight? And so it became fair at that point.
Yes.
Like they squared
It
up.
wasn't a
He didn't
sucker
just get
punch
up and
surprise,
punch him. Yeah. The saddest part of all this is Tim Anderson can't take a punch. I mean, that was he got hit and his soul left his body, and it did not look like that firm of a punch.
It did not.
It
It
didn't.
connected.
And he went
It connected.
just out.
It connected the punch, but Roughneck Odor punch on Jose Bautista was a lot worse, and Jose Bautista did not lose consciousness. So So a couple things. I thought you talking about, and we're talking about the Jose Ramirez, his reasoning for it. He's kind of contradicting himself a little bit. Like, well, he's been disrespecting the game for so long, and then I was just defending myself. So, do you not like him? Was it the tag?
Was it self-defense?
Yes. You're kind of like both sides. You gotta just be honest. Everyone's with you. Take advantage of this situation. Just say like the guy's a dick. He did this to me. I wasn't know that, and then he squared up too. It was my time to shine.
That's fine.
Just say that.
Yeah.
But don't say he's been disrespecting it, and then I don't know. He just squared up, and I defended myself.
You don't have to make up a big backstory because we saw it.
Yeah.
Like you said, say I didn't like the way he tagged me. I got up, I told him, and he squared up, and then we fought.
There were some words. Maybe he told you something that you didn't like, and that's enough to go at it. And we'll support it. Now, you also mentioned that Tim Anderson cannot take a punch. That's obvious. He can also not take bullying from the internet, which we all knew that was happening. This guy went onto Twitter. So his last tweet was June 7th. So he hadn't tweeted for a whole month. And then he just went off. You know, all this happens for a reason. We stay in focus. Been through this shit for a minute. Keep kicking me while I'm down. Oh, everybody's switching. Oh, I'm hoping I hope you're picking up what I'm putting down. The picture bigger.
We're not putting up we're not picking up what you're putting down, Tim Anderson.
I thought it was the bigger picture, but he put the picture bigger, or the picture is bigger.
Well, he's concussed.
He's concussed. The guy doesn't know what he's doing. He cannot take the bullying from the internet, which if you saw that, you knew immediately that was going viral. Not only viral, but it was going to the all-time fights videos. We're gonna be seeing this 30 years from now. Like the Odor and Jose Bautista fight was like 10 years ago. We had a fight. We talk about that. Same thing with this. So buckle up, Tim Anderson, because the internet's not done with you.
This could not have gone worse for Tim Anderson. Not only did he get knocked out in the fight, you haven't logged into Twitter for a month. Just stay away. Just stay away. Just stay away. Don't make this worse. Like this is where you need to have a little bit of like some sort of humor, something. Say, that didn't go my way. Yeah, we're gonna have to do a rematch. Laugh about. You cannot then get on Twitter and act like you're still kind of tough because you lost that now. You lost that. Like you can't. This is hard. This is a PR bad for the brand for Tim Anderson. Like, I don't want to exaggerate. It feels like this is what he's going to be known for now.
He's having a terrible year. He's having a terrible year. That doesn't help.
The memes. I mean, some guy put, I forget who it was. They put that he punches like someone who's hit one home run a year. And it's like, yeah, I guess we are kicking him when he's down. But he's handled this terribly. This is when you really have to either say nothing, because all his tweets are doing is more ammunition for people to say, oh, he's hurt, he's mad. And he is. And
people will say, like, he's tweeting, I'm going to reply. I'm not even going to follow him. I'm just going to reply because I know he's going to be on and watching it. So, yeah, bad look, bad everything, bad chin, bad punch, bad stance. You're not a southpaw. I can tell you've never boxed. But I don't know. This got me thinking of, like, the best fights. What are some fights? Obviously, we know that Jose Bautista and Odor, because Elvis Andrews was there for both.
Yes.
So I think that immediately kind of like brought that back. But what other fights do you always think of when we see this?
There was so always the Nolan Ryan Robin Ventura one, because
Classic.
that one was sick. Nolan Ryan just used like old man dad strength, got him under the choke, just started hitting him. He was bloody after. I also like I always like the Bryce Harper Strickland fight.
Underrated
Because
fight.
underrated fight. They both landed. I like when, if you want to fight, get there before everyone breaks it up,
Yeah.
which is what Bryce Harper did. He got to Strickland before anyone break it up. They both landed a little bit. And then I love when Amir Garrett tried to take on the whole dugout. That was just...
So
and shout out to John Boy, because he had the great breakdown where you see him basically telling the pitching coach, like,
come on,
I'm going over there, and he did.
Same with the Amir Garrett, friend of the channel, Ramon, going at the Houston bench.
That was
a good one too. By the way, Ramon got DFA'd. Mets might be calling and bringing him in, but
we're happy for Ramon.
We're happy for Ramon.
Greener pastures are the grass will be greener on the other side. I hope he gets picked up by someone in contention here and lights it up.
I mean, the grass will be greener because the grass where he was at was not green. So
there was no grass.
Yeah, there was no grass. So good for him. But that was a good one. You know, yes. Ramon going at the bench, like he was going at the bench coach, and he knew what was gonna happen. He was gonna get jumped.
He didn't care.
He got tackled, and he didn't care. You know, I always think about the Red Sox Yankees, the Varitek and A-Rod fight. Obviously, Pedro and Don Zimmer, that's kind of like, it wasn't really a fight. But that was
a
always
moment, though.
Yeah. But the A-Rod Varitek is always a good one. But yeah, fights in baseball are always fun.
Baseball fights are great.
Yeah.
They're great.
I
When it
remember
really
also,
pops off, it's great.
I remember the Yadi Molina and Brandon Phillips. Like they went all the way. That was a good one too. Big brawl there. But yeah, enough of the trades or enough of the fights. Let's go back to the trades because we have a start bench cut.
Yes.
I don't know why we do the start bench cut because I absolutely hate it because I feel like
my least favorite part.
I have all three here. I don't even know which one I'm gonna do, but 3 trades. Start bench cut. We got 2004. Beltran was traded to Houston. This is trade deadline deals as well. So that year,
and we're doing kind of recent history from like 2000 onward.
We're not doing Babe Ruth to the Yankees. Sorry, Yankee fans, we're not doing that. I didn't want to do that anyways. That's number 1. But Beltran to Houston, obviously we know what he did. Helped that team who was absolutely stacked. Made it to the playoff, but he put that team on his back in October. Yeah. Then we got CC Sabathia when he was traded to the Brewers. He was kind of like the only guy in that trade deadline, the only pitcher, the big pitcher. He was obviously going to be a free agent. He was going to get paid. He went to Milwaukee. Milwaukee was like a game or 2 back of the wild card. He made that push. He took them to the promised land with an insane second half. And then Manny Ramirez to the Dodgers that same year. That was electric. You remember the dreadlocks with wearing 99 for the LA Dodgers. He batted like 400 that second half. Insane.
Literally.
Yeah. So, start bench cut. You want to start? Because I don't.
I'll start, but you tell me where to start at. Am I starting with cut or am I starting with bench?
Let's cut the first one.
Sorry.
Let's cut. This is the I guess the least impactful, I guess. I can start if you're not ready.
They're all really impactful. I'm just going to go with what this is just
what you
feeling.
Remember. Yeah.
This is just feeling. For me, it was, I'm going to cut Manny. I'm actually going to cut Manny. I feel like I'd seen Manny at his highest moments already in Boston. I'd seen him help them win a World Series. I'd seen him in those Red Sox Yankees rivalries. I'd seen him and Ortiz and Pedro. Like that was such an electric time. And when he got traded, he was kind of struggling with Boston at that time. And he was in the last year of he had a $660 million contract, which was insane at that time. He was 36. He was past his prime. He did go out and absolutely mash. So he hit 396, 17 home runs, 53 RBIs in 53 games, which is crazy. But for me, that was the swan song on Manny Ramirez. It was a good story. Maybe it's because it's West Coast. I lost sight of him a little bit. To me, that was more of a cool one. Out of these three, maybe a little bit surprising. That's the one that I'm going to cut.
I was actually gonna cut that one as well. I think
Okay, I like it.
he went from Boston there. He was, I think, what loses a little bit of value was that it was kind of like past his prime. Even though he delivered, he tested positive.
Yeah.
I think in the year after again. Anyways, he tested positive multiple times. But he absolutely smashed. I thought it became kind of like the Manny Mania, kind of like Fernando Mania, but Manny Mania, everybody was wearing the dreads and everything. But it doesn't feel like it had that much of an impact for the playoff push or in October as the other two, and I think that's where it separates itself.
Right.
So I think that's where I'm gonna cut Manny. You want to start or bench? We're not having
go
the
ahead
same,
and-
right? Okay, so
You
I'm
go-
gonna start, and this is tough for me because, like, as a
Are you starting or benching right now?
well, if I start, the other one's gonna be bench.
Well, I guess I know either one. Yeah.
This was so long ago, but it was so electric. So I'm gonna start CC. I'm gonna start CC Sabathia. I think the fact that he went from Cleveland to another kind of like Cleveland wasn't obviously a big market team, but he went into another small market team in Milwaukee. Hadn't made the playoffs in 25 plus years. They were a game back of the wild card, and this is when we talk about this is before the expansion of the wild card as well. Keep that in mind. Only one team would make the playoffs, and they were a game back. And we're talking about buying and sellers, and this was the best buy in history. And I think because he carried that team into the playoffs almost single-handedly. Like, he had a sub 1 ERA that second half. Like, and yes, he's a pitcher that we only get to see him once every 5 days or 5 games, but he lifted that team. This is what I was talking about the Angels earlier. When you see a team going for it, the team kind of rallies behind that trade. And that's what Milwaukee did. The Angels obviously are not doing that. So I thought it was big for Milwaukee making the playoffs that year. Now, I understand that Carlos Beltran impact was more in October in the actual playoffs, which I think it gives him a lot of value. What historic run, but they didn't even make the World Series. So I think that's where I kind of deducted a point from the Carlos Beltran one. It wasn't his fault, but that team was stacked. That team had Roger Clemens, Oswalt, and Andy Pettitte as pitchers. They had Craig Biggio, Bagwell. I mean, Lance Berkman. They needed a bat. They didn't even need a bat.
Still had something to cheer for. They had a good team, right?
Yeah, they had a chance.
Beltran didn't have to come in and be the savior for that team.
Yeah.
He pushed them to a different level, but he didn't have to come in and be a savior.
Yeah. So I think that's where I kind of deducted a point. As a fellow Puerto Rican, it hurts me because that put Carlos Beltran on the map. You got to remember, Carlos Beltran came from Kansas City. Talk about a small market. Nobody knew about him. He had won the Rookie of the Year, a couple Gold Gloves, but nobody knew about him, and especially not for the bat. That year Beltran hit 258 with 23 home runs, 28 stolen bases. So it wasn't like the 35 home run Beltran that we ended up seeing, but that was his coming out party, and I think it was bigger than that, more for after. That's when he signed the big deal. You know about his big deal. But that kind of put him on the map and started what I think was a Hall of Fame career. Like, it really boosted that career for him.
Yeah, his trajectory took off. I agree with you. I actually thought you were going to put Beltran first there. I agree with you for basically all the reasons you said. I'll add a couple other reasons why the CC trade for me was sick. So, like you said, and we just said, Beltran didn't have to go save Houston. Milwaukee, when they got CC, it was basically like, please help us. Please help us make the playoffs. Like you said, it's almost been a 30-year drought. And what he did was insane. So he made 17 starts. He went 11-2, 1.65 ERA, 7 complete games, and 3 shutouts.
Yeah.
To top that all off, you want to see his hitting stats? He went 11 for 48 with 2 doubles, a home run, and 6 RBIs. Like,
Shohei before Shohei.
He did everything. Yeah. Like, all right, we got to give CC some credit here. So he came out, and like you said, a pitcher is once every 5th day. So it's a little scary. And when you go out and trade someone like that, and Matt Laporta back then was a pretty big prospect. Michael Brantley obviously became a very big player. They did trade some pieces for him. he went out every fifth day and it was a win. And he got him to the playoff. Like, he did everything he was supposed to do. You cannot say that that was a disappointing, season for him. Obviously, you always want to win the World Series, but I think that was electric. That was absolutely insane. So I think a little underdog there. We got CC.
And
Both
it's
of
funny.
us saying that was the best one.
And I think also part of the impact that he had, looking at the stats now, like he had a 6-8 record for Cleveland in that first half or before the trade with a 3.83 ERA. That's why he was like, this is the guy everybody needs. And we're talking an almost 4 ERA guy. He went to
Yeah.
Milwaukee, obviously a different league. It wasn't the same. And putting a sub 2 ERA, like 1.65 ERA for those, 15, 17 starts.
17 starts.
It's a
yeah.
big difference. Like you got the 3.5 mid 3 ERA guy, and you got a sub 2 ERA guy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that was insane. That was an insane run. I remember.
And he was just so locked in. You would see him, like we said, the 7 complete games. I remember seeing him out there, and they'd say he's got a rubber arm. He's this big, strong guy. He was just dominant. So yeah, we'll see if anyone this year puts together that kind of. I gotta give a shout out. I know we didn't include him. Cespedes, when he came to the Mets, was a big one for me. A lot of these guys end up getting big contracts too, right? You play lights out for 2 months in a new place, and they fall in love with you. You walk your way into some big money.
You got to think a lot of this trade around the trade deadlines means because this guy is going to be a free agent and I'm outside of the play, I'm out of the playoff run, I'm going to trade him, right? And that's when they're like, time to make some money as well, right? So, and I know we missed a few. Let us know which one you would have liked to add. Comment on the YouTube channel, and if you're listening on the audio podcast, go to the YouTube channel and comment on it. Subscribe and like while you're at it. Share it with your best friend. Tell them about the trades and tell them if you learned something new on this episode because we went back, 20 plus years. So
little history,
little history lesson there by baseball as intended. That will do it for episode 24. You want to walk us off? Anything you want to add?
I'm excited to see. I talked about the Angels because I've been following the Angels all year, and I think they're dead in the water. I want them to somehow prove me wrong. I still want some more. Ohtani's had some really big moments this year, and I want a few more. I don't want him to go out like this. So I'll be staying up late, watching some Angels games, seeing if they crawl back into it. But yeah, I think now my focus is on a lot of these players that got traded. Like, I'm almost following that to see how it plays out. And I mean, September, to me, October is obviously the best month in baseball because it's the playoffs. But September, the playoff chase, I mean, it's right around the corner. So we'll see. Expanded playoffs. It's crowded. A lot of teams still kind of got a shot. We'll see.
Big series coming up. Astros, Baltimore. Looking forward to that starting tomorrow. That's gonna be interesting, especially because also Texas is facing Oakland starting today. So be careful. You don't want to fall too behind Texas because they are a very good team. They went out and make some trades. But that will do it for episode 24. Again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, subscribe, rate it, all that good stuff. You guys know where to find us. And we will see you on the next one, episode 25. Until then.
Adios.